Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Lead the Way webinar, From Burnout to Peak Performance, Unleashing the Cognitive Athlete. My name is Kelly Day, and I'm the Events and Business Engagement Specialist here at the Institute of Managers and Leaders, Australia and New Zealand. I would like to begin today's event by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're all meeting from today and pay my respects to elders past and present. It's wonderful to have you all here for the July edition of our Lead the Way series. These sessions are designed to equip you with the practical tools and insights to thrive as a leader in today's fast-paced and constantly evolving environment. Leadership today often feels like a non-stop sprint. We are expected to be on all the time as we drive outcomes, support teams, and respond to constant demands. But operating at full capacity without pause is just not sustainable. Today's fantastic presenter will explore how to shift from burnout to high performance by applying principles from elite sport, such as periodization, rhythm, and recovery into your leadership practice and team culture. With that being said, we're delighted to have Clint Rahe with us this afternoon, who will share valuable insights on how to do this. Clint is the founder of The Performance Edge, a company dedicated to helping leaders and teams unlock their full potential and achieve sustainable peak performance. He is the author of The Cognitive Athlete, a groundbreaking book that applies elite sports science to leadership, resilience, and productivity. With over 20 years of experience in leadership development and organizational transformation, Clint specializes in delivering tailored learning solutions that drive real behavior change. Drawing on his background in military and sports leadership training, Clint brings practical, high-impact approach to leadership coaching. He's passionate about helping individuals and teams navigate high-pressure environments, build mental resilience, and thrive both professionally and personally. Before I pass over to Clint, if you have any questions throughout today's session, please send them via the chat or Q&A function, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to get to as many as possible at the end of the presentation. Clint, a big welcome to you. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. So today, feel free to use the chat box. I've got some interactive activities for us to do as well as we go through. So welcome to the session. So today, I want to paint the picture. So if I ask you to picture an elite athlete, what comes to mind? You probably it could be Usain Bolt. It could be like Messi and Ronaldo, or even Serena or Venus Williams. What I find when, what do they all have in common? They train by chance. They don't train by chance. They train on purpose. They fuel their bodies, they plan recovery, and they operate in their own rhythm. Because they know that peak performance isn't constant. It's periodized over the year. But here's the catch, is most professionals like you out there, you don't actually treat yourself in this way. If you think about it, we may not be physical athletes, but we are cognitive athletes because our performance isn't physical, it's mental. It's focus, it's decision-making, resilience, clarity, thinking under pressure. But what we do, we actually sprint through every day without a pause. We skip recovery, we stack back-to-back Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, and the biggest one we're expected to be on all the time. So if you think about a marathon runner, if they trained like we train, they'll burn out in a second. So why do we actually lead this way? Today, I'm going to flip the script on productivity. I'm going to show you how to lead like a cognitive athlete using rhythm, recovery, and neuroscience-backed strategies for you to perform at your best without burning out. Because leadership isn't about doing more, it's about doing better with clarity and energy that lasts. So I want to share with you a bit of a case study. So I want to introduce you to Dawn. She's a senior manager, global financial services firm. 18 years experience in strategy and finance. She leads across a cross-regional team, so APAC, the US and Europe. Her day starts at 6 a.m. She answers emails from her US team because it's the end of the day. And she works all the way through the day, and her day actually ends at midnight with Zoom or Teams meetings in Europe. She powers through back-to-back meetings, putting out fires all day, skips meals, doesn't have any breaks, operates on caffeine, maybe some Red Bull, and just sheer willpower. And somehow, despite doing all of that, her to-do list just grows and grows and grows and grows, and she can never keep up. Does that sound familiar to anybody? A lot of clients I work with, this is the case more often than not. You know, she looks very successful on the outside, but inside she's exhausted. Her focus is scattered. Her health is starting to give away. And even when she goes on family holidays, her body just crashes literally on day one. Don't know if anyone else has experienced that. So it's not a weakness. There's something called the letdown effect. And it's a very real response to that chronic stress time after time after time. So many, many years of chronic stress will lead to the letdown effect because your immune system drops, your system gives out, and you're more susceptible to picking up colds, flus, COVID, etc. But what Emma needs, right? She doesn't need another productivity app. She doesn't need to push harder. She's already pretty successful. She needs a new model, a new way of working, right? And that's what today is all about, is thinking about you as a cognitive athlete. So training your mind like athletes train their bodies. So yeah, see, it definitely sounds familiar. Like I said, many of my clients actually, it is exactly like this. So what I want to do is I just want to start with a bit of a Zoom poll if we can. And I just want to see where people are at when it comes to how they're feeling at the moment. Can we run that, Nancy? There we go. Okay, so which best describes your typical work rhythm? So are you always on? So notifications, emails, bing, 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 bing. Or do you try to disconnect? Boundaries are somewhat blurred. Or have you got a really solid practice in terms of protecting your focus and energy? And we'll see where we're at with that one. Okay. Yeah, very familiar territory. Yeah, you can see that on the chat. Trevor, yeah, learn to delegate effectively, 100%. Definitely one of the strategies there. All right, okay, let's have a look. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. You can all see that. So 57% try to disconnect, boundaries often get blurred. Yeah, always on 18%, and then 24% good. That's good. Good. So if we think about so some of you got some really good strategies, right? So if you think about burnout so far, there's loads of literature. You probably have these in your inbox as well. So if you think about burnout specifically for leaders, 70% of leaders experience burnout in their current roles. So that was by a study by Deloitte in 2024. 50% of managers are actively seeking or passively looking to leave their organization, which is pretty scary. 44% of leaders, they're always on, so you can't disconnect from work. And then if you think about the health impacts, leaders with poor recovery habits report a 40% lower decision quality, and 76% of leaders report poor sleep. We'll look at sleep as well, because I think sleep is a really important factor when we're thinking about being a cognitive athlete. So using our brains, using our minds to make better decisions as we go through. Lots of different ways to describe burnout. World Health Organization as an example. Physical, emotional, mental exhaustion, often accompanied by reduced motivation, diminished job performance. We probably all experience this in one form or another over our working lives. If you think about burnout, women are more likely to experience burnout than men. So 42% of women compared to just 30% of men. And also, when we think around, there is a massive hidden health toll to high performance as well. So if we are always on stress, the hustle culture, pushing harder, sleeping less, powering through, they're all the hidden costs. They don't actually show up in your calendar, but they actually show up in your cells, believe it or not. So research has begun to shine a light on the correlation between chronic stress and autoimmune diseases specifically. Quite a few of the exec coaching clients that I work with, they're in their 50s plus in executive roles, so CFOs, COOs, CEOs, and when they need the energy to be on, they're actually, a lot of them have actually got quite serious chronic health conditions. Some of them have autoimmune diseases, chronic heart disease, diabetes, and what all the research is finding is that women are 80% more likely to be affected by that long-term chronic stress and autoimmune diseases at 80%. Look, and it's not just social, it's biological as well. So we've got different hormonal influences in comparison to men. So estrogen, stimulates immune activity. So women are really good at fighting off um, infections better, but because they're responding more strongly to all of these vaccines or all of the colds and flus, what tends to happen is it tends to have a bit of more of an increase of autoimmune diseases. You've got the chromosomes, so that women have got two X chromosomes. They contain higher density of immune-related genes, right? So some of them can escape, and which will then amplify an immune response. So that exposure to long-term chronic stress is not really good for you. You even see this in shift workers, in which on average they live 8 to 10 years less. If you're a shift worker. So we need to start thinking this more holistically than just we need to grind to get through to get results. So I would say this one thing: you can't out-hack evolution. Now, where did this all start? So back in the early 1900s, Ford introduced the move and assembly line in Michigan. So, and that drastically reduced the production time to build a car from 12 hours to 93 minutes. So because it was it increased efficiency. What that enabled Henry Ford to do is actually pay his workers $5 a day, which was nearly double the standard rate, which then meant they can buy these automobiles. But if you think about the assembly line, is you stand there, you have to put like a door on, another door on, another door on, and and you just stand there all day, and you get paid more, you get more results. Now, this works really well. This approach works really well in manufacturing. But what we've done, we've adopted this production line worker mindset back into today's knowledge economy, right? So, and I see this, you go into your work and you'll be able to look around all the buildings, and this is what you see, right? Production line. We're all sat behind desks or in our cubicles, row upon row upon row. But we're not we're not production line workers, right? We are knowledge workers, and we need to be thinking about working in a different model now, because it is outdated, right? We can't, if you get paid more, you're not going to necessarily deliver better results, right? It works for manufacturing, but not for knowledge workers, because what we, as knowledge workers, we're valued on our ability to solve complex problems. We adapt to change. We strategically drive progress. We're able to be flexible, making decisions. But if we are stuck in the production line worker mindset, then we're not going to give our brains the time it needs for us to be able to make those better decisions, right? To be able to look at all the research, to be able to think through complex problems. And what you probably find is some of you have even experienced brain fog, which is a phenomenon in there that we'll go through a bit later. And there's some really great research from Microsoft, which I'll cover in a second. So if you think about you now, we are cognitive athletes. So it's someone who uses mental conditioning, structured recovery to excel under pressure. So I want you to start thinking, this is the new productivity, right? Rather than, having a productivity app, or you need to be faster, you need to do more with less. So I've got a bit of an activity. If you have a pen and paper, right? So get your pen, get your paper out if you have that now. I'm going to do a bit of an activity just to give you another perspective on things. Who's good at multitasking? Is anyone good at multitasking here? I say put your hand up, I can't see you. Not me. So what I want you to get your pen and your paper, right? And I've got this activity now. So we're going to do 2 rounds of this. The first round, what we'll do, and I've got a timer as well, is within your piece of pen and paper, right? Is when I say go, I want you to cooking lunch. Nice, Trevor. Is when I say go, is I want you to have 2 lines, and once I go, you're going to write multitasking is worse than a lie. Once you've written that, then you're going to go straight to the row below that and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 27. Once you've done that one, look up at the stopwatch that I've got here and just record your time. Okay. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to shift the activity, and we're going to do a second round of this with slightly different parameters. All right. So if you've got a pen and paper, get it out now. Have 2 lines on a piece of paper. So use a bit of a line paper. The top row, you're just going to multitasking words than a lie. And then straight after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way to 27. Okay. I've got a stopwatch there. So ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, it's about 30 seconds. 29 seconds. Yeah, good. That's fast, Maya. Yeah. 23. Susan, even better. What? There you go. 31. Yes. 50 seconds. Yeah, okay. 34. Good. 36. Yeah. Yeah, you're pretty good. Cool. Right, I'll stop the stopwatch there. So this time, yeah, look at that. They're good times. I've done this so many times. It's good to see around about 30, right? So this time, what we'll do is we're going to switch rows, right? So when I say go, you're going to write M, and then the row below, you're going to write 1. Then you're going to go U, and then 2, and then L, and then 3, and then T, and then 4, I, 5, T, 6. So you're going to switch between the 2 different rows. Same time. Let me get the timer back up there. Same time. And yeah, let's see how you get on. So you're going to switch between the rows. So M, and then 1, and then U, and then L. Sorry, U, and then 2, and etc. Okay. So ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, it's about 30 seconds. $41. Yes. 3. Wow, I got some quick ones. 54, 52. Yeah, it's about 1 minute. Kelly, yes, 56. 56. Yeah. Yeah, 28 versus 52. Yeah, 1 minute, 104. Yeah. 60. Interesting, hey? Yeah, 113. What would it even messier? Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll stop that at 1:30. Um, so you can see, just so you can see from there, is it's roughly about half, right? So, well, not half, you've doubled your time from that. Interesting, isn't it, when we think around multitasking? And there's a really good study done this. It was actually 1992, and you can see just on the bottom there the number of simultaneous tasks that you have and the percentage of time that it's taking. And you can see as the more tasks that we have, the more time we're actually losing through the loss of context switching. So switching from one thing to another. So these number of simultaneous tasks, they could be emails, notifications, working on two different things at once, phone calls going off, bloody kids coming into your office, people interrupting you, so many different simultaneous things that you're working on at once, right? So what you find is if you just work on one, you can, like it says there, a 6-month task would only take about 3.6 months without the loss of context. And there's some other research saying it takes around 15 minutes for you to get back into the same level of concentration that you're in before you got interrupted. How many, just like curiosity, right? How many simultaneous tasks have you got on at the moment? Obviously, you're listening to me, you're watching this, you're doing the switching activity, you're Teams in somebody, maybe you're texting someone else. Yeah. And you think, yeah, several. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot, right? And this is what I'm finding is like, especially with a lot of my clients, we're up to 4 to 5, right? In between that 4 to 5. In there. I'm not gonna say, look, you need to be at one. You can only focus on one at a time. That would be great in an ideal world, right? But we don't work in that sort of ideal world. But my challenge to you is, can we then manufacture that? Thanks, Tony. Can we manufacture that so our calendars don't look like this? Yeah. And this is one of my one of my clients, where we're double booked, triple booked. We've just got back to back, back to back, back to back, back to back meetings. Anyone's calendar look a bit like that? That's one of the first things I get my get my clients. I'm like, right, let's have a look at your calendar. Yeah, yeah. It's only I guess if if you're in charge of your calendar, you haven't got like a PA or EA, then you can set some really good boundaries on there. Have some different colors, because what'll happen is that we're jumping from meeting to meeting to meeting. We end up getting something called brain fog. Has anyone ever experienced that? Where we're sort of like, so we're overloaded. Our brains are like, whoa, what's going on? You can't make decisions. You're feeling a little bit like, wow, what's going on? I used to suffer from that, especially, earlier in the morning. Why is that? Right. So if you think about this, right, your prefrontal cortex is at the front of your brain, right? And that is your executive function. So that enables you to make decisions, to think clearly, to have tighter control, thoughts, emotions, to be able to rationalize, to synthesize information. Now, what happens, and what I'll say with cortisol, right? Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's good. It's a good stress hormone, but too much of it is not, it has quite a negative impact like on here, right? So too much cortisol within your prefrontal cortex actually diminishes your ability to make the decisions. You have, your limited willpower. You're sort of not able to think clearly. We've all experienced that from time to time. And what I would say is that cortisol is a good thing, right? It's having the ability to recognize when we are getting, our cortisol is getting elevated over and above what we actually need, because it's that fight flight hormone that keeps us alive, right? But what is this all saying? All of this is saying our brain actually needs a break, right? So going back to back to back meetings, it does not serve us. There's some really great research from Microsoft. And what they did, they actually showed these back-to-back virtual meetings, the impact it has on your cognitive function, right? Your ability to focus and think clearly, right? So this was done in their human factors lab. So what they did, they had EEG electroencephalograph, right? And that is a skull cap with loads of different sensors to measure all the different parts of the brains and brain waves and things like that. And what they did, and you can see the top line. So on the top line, so no breaks, they had this skull cap on and they measured a group of people and they just had back-to-back Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. And what you can see is with the colors, the red, it means that the higher levels of cortisol, right, and your beta brain waves are higher, which is increasing your stress levels. The blue, the cooler ones, that means that your cortisol is lower. We're able to think clearly. We're a little bit more calm and in control. And you can see that I don't know what people's calendars are like, right? And or meetings when you're just back to back. There are some really good things that we can do, which I'll cover a bit later. But you can see meeting one, we sort of get to the meeting, we're sort of all calm, we're cool. But then we jump straight from meeting one straight into meeting two, where a little bit stress levels are rising a little bit, and then we jump into meeting three, and that is pretty intense. And then we jump into meeting four, and in meeting four we're sort of zoned out, right? And we're like, oh, had enough of this. I'm just, I've got so much on. I'm getting all these action items from every meeting. I've got loads of people to go back to. Emails just keep binging up and everything. Now, what they did, they contrasted that with having a break, right? Having a break in between meetings. And you can see just down on the bottom there it is blue, right? So you're calm, you're controlled, you've got more focus and more engagement within the meetings, right? So what does this look like on a graph? This is with no break, right? So you can see the time duration on the bottom, and we can see the level of activity within your brain, and which correlates with your stress levels, and we can see the peaks, right? So we can see it sort of peaking and topping out at almost 0.7. It looks pretty angry, right? But what I want to think about is this here. So meeting three is at the start. You're actually starting on a really high level of stress on that meeting three. So that was the one that was the highest in the red. And then you can see four, we're starting there, and then it finishes and we're still quite high. Now, if we then show you with breaks, it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? Chalk and cheese, right? So you've got a lower average of beta brain activity within here, right? So it goes to almost 0.2, but you can see the peaks are not as high. And then you can see the start and finish, the start of each meeting, you're in control, right? You're clear, you're focused, you're engaged with meetings, right? But if you compare that to this one here, like it's just crazy. So if you've got like back-to-back meetings, you're actually putting a lot of chronic stress on your brain, right? And your brain is your tool for you to be able to make decisions and delegate, for example, or when you get back from work, go to the gym, go for a walk, eat healthily, get the sleep, reduce alcohol, all of that stuff, remain hydrated and things like that. So, there are a few things that you can do. Some organizations have already got this built into your meetings, right? But very few actually adhere to it. So you can actually go into your calendar. So you can go into Outlook and you can change the duration of your meetings from this default 30 to 25 minutes. So then you can only book 25-minute meetings. So that means you've got 5 minutes to go to the toilet, right? To eat, to drink, to just write off all the actions you need to do from that meeting and then move into the next one. If it's longer, you can, cut the meetings down to 50 minutes or 55 minutes. It's just the discipline of actually sticking to that. That'll be the key. There's another study done in the United States when it comes to parole. And what they found is that the meeting, so when prisoners come up for parole, that's like early release on condition, is what they found is that early in the morning, tick yes, parole, but the closer it come to morning tea at around 10:30, there was a lot more, no, they're not getting parole. They had morning tea, and guess what? Tick, 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 got close to lunch, no. And this sort of pattern just happened over the whole day, and they were completely unaware of it until they did this study. Because people just, we just get tired, right? Because we're always on, always focused, just on there. Harley, good, yeah, right. 25. So you've already got it default set in there. A lot of organizations have actually got this in there, but not many people adhere to the meeting etiquette. So they'll just go, oh, you got 5 more minutes, it's okay, and they'll just, they just run over, right? Yeah. That's exactly, yeah. So Brett, good. Yeah. Virtual meetings, and you can just fill your calendar with all these virtual meetings back to back to back. You get no rest, no break. My wife works from home and she's back to back all the time, and then at the end of the day, she's absolutely exhausted. So that's the thing, right? So maybe what you need to do when you're working in the office is intentionally be slow to meetings, right? Another one. So what are the key findings, right? So breaks allow your brain to rest. So and when you have a break, it could be anything just to get out of that meeting room. So go to the toilet, go for a quick walk around the block. Look, meditation does actually really work, specifically for skill acquisition, right? So in the military, so I used to be in the military for about 13, 14 years ago. And I used to train a lot of skill stuff. So we used to actually do a bit of mindfulness. We never called it meditation because we would have got a bad rap. So we just called it a bit of a mindfulness break in which we're just focusing on our breathing and visualization of putting weapons together and things like that. And actually it works. But again, it's the transition of between meetings, right? So switching from one to another, that's going to be a really key indicator there. So whatever you do, have a think about putting in some breaks or some buffers. An agenda really works as well, and get someone to have the agenda. Andrew, yeah, that's right. You need the time to prep for meetings, right? So I'll give you an example now. Before I have meetings, I'll block out 10 minutes before the meeting to prep for it. And then at least you come in focused. Have you got the ability to do that? That's the question within that. Yes, good one, John. Yeah, John. Yeah, 100%. Go for a walk outside. Yep. I've just wrote an article today actually around the. It's on LinkedIn. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, it's around the benefits of nature. And what it does for your focus and cognition with this one. Now, the great thing is about all of these findings, we've got something already within our bodies that make this really key. So we can actually do that. There's something called the ultradian rhythm. So that is our body's focus, right? So we go through these 90 to 120 minute cycles at night, during the day, and these are innate within our body. So we've already got this built in. And this is what it looks like. So we go through about 90 minutes of ability for us to focus. And then after that, we actually drop off. If you've got ADHD, it's a lot shorter than this, and you have more of these sort of cycles, so maximum about 45 minutes. So you can actually cut it down a little bit more as well. But what we tend to do is we tend to go through the day. And let me just get my, and you're probably aware of this, right? Is that we'll go through the day, so go arousal, we come up, we're sort of in this pure focus zone, and then we'll start feeling a little bit like, oh, focus is waning, and then what do? We go, we bridge this gap here with coffee, right? And coffee's good, right? In moderation, coffee's good. I wouldn't do it after 2 o'clock because it has a half-life, and if you have it after 2 o'clock, what will happen is it will delay your onset of sleep, right? So that has a bit of an impact on there. So if you're having coffees at 5 o'clock, you probably find you won't be able to get to sleep as quick in the nighttime, and you'll be awake longer. That has a big impact as well. And then we'll sort of bridge this gap as well. Maybe depend on where you work. Maybe it's a mother, maybe it's a V, maybe it's a Red Bull. But what happens is, can you do this? Can you do this on a short term because you've got projects on? Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. But what I'm saying is that if this is the chronic stress that I'm talking about, time after time after time after time, right? So what we need to think about is actually going outside and having that 20-minute break, stepping away from our computers, looking outside, looking at nature, doing some breath work, doing some meditation, listening to music, going to the toilet, having some food. so we need to start, thinking about sort of, not bridging this gap. Like I said, years after year on year, it'll be no good for your long-term health, right? Let's erase all that ink. Oh, there we go. Now we also have, you probably know this, circadian rhythm. This is our body's 24-hour clock. And it's our timing device, right? So, and it's around our sleep-wake cycles, which is here. And this is I'll say this is a traditional morning person, where we are, if you have a look on here, we've got 24 hours on the bottom, we've got different stages of alertness, and we have these different peaks. Now, you need to think about sleep in 90-minute cycles, right? So we go through these sort of sleep cycles through the night, and as we then awake, our morning peak is around, for a traditional morning person, it is it's about just after 8 o'clock, and then there's another one at like 11, and then it goes through about 2:30, and then it's all wanes off as we go through the day. Traditional morning person. However, if you're an afternoon person, your peak will be more up here. If you're an evening person, it'll be up here. I used to work with someone whose peak was at 9 p.m. So you should send me loads of emails through about 11 o'clock, which I was asleep. Just there. So, but it's okay if they're morning peaks, if they're morning, afternoon, or evening peak. Then what we need to start doing is we need to start thinking about when we actually put our work into our calendars, right? So what we don't want to be doing is we don't here in our morning peak, we want to be doing our deep focus work, right? So we've got two different types of work. We've got the deep work. So this is by Cal Newport's book called Deep Work. We've got shallow work, right? So shallow work is all their emails. It's all of the mental energy, answering phone calls, attending meetings, all the shallow stuff that takes like 10 to 15 minutes to do, which we end up clogging up our calendars with a lot of that stuff. Whereas the deep work is that focused work in which we are, maybe we're writing reports, we're doing projects, we're thinking, we're actually going off site, we're using our brains to really sort of focus and think on one task at a time, so we're not interrupted with all of these shallow work interruptions, right? So what do we do first thing in the morning? We check our emails. We need to be, having our focus zones somewhere here, right? And we need to be able to track and monitor that as we go through. There's no point in the afternoon peak if if we know that's your lowest point. There's no point doing the hardest work then. As Brian Tracy said, eat the frog first, right? So if you're a morning person there. However, I am a slightly afternoon peak, so I schedule my deep work in from 3 till 5 rather than at 8 a.m. Right? I know that it takes me ages to get going in the morning, but between 3 and 5, I'm like in the Matrix, and I know that from that. So I book all the deep work I need to do in the afternoon. All the shallow work I'll do in the morning, just on there. All right. So it's being aware of your rhythm and what that means for you as we go through. Right. But here is the expectation, right? So expectations of performance, if we take this over a year, is from January, after January, Australia Day, and kids are back at school, boom, we're on performance all year, right? And that's the way it has to be, which is pretty unrealistic. But the reality of performance is a lot different, right? We go through these peaks and troughs as we go through the day, through the year, through the months, through the weeks. We can't be like, it goes all the way back to that. We can't be on all the time. So we need to be able to think about, when are we in our peaks? When are we in our troughs? Let's look at as we go through the year as well, which we'll cover a little bit later, right? So what is the answer to all of this stuff? Is we need to think about periodization, right? Is dividing our time into focused effort, planned recovery, to make sure that we're optimizing our performance and maintaining energy, right? It's okay if in June or July our performance drops off. It's okay, right? It's being aware of that and making sure that we haven't got any mergers and acquisitions or keynote presentations that we're doing within that zone, because that's where we need to actually recover within there. So what are the phases? So we've got condition, transition, performance, recovery, and then that leads into the next conditioning phase. we think about this for an athlete, conditioning is focusing on general training. So that's endurance, strength, flexibility. So it's high volume. So we're doing a lot of it, but lower intensity, right? So we're just getting if we're training for a marathon, we're starting steady. We're just building up our stamina. As we go into the transition phase for an athlete, we're looking at lower volume, so we're not doing as many, but we're doing higher intensity, so it's more sprint work. So if we're working with a 400-meter runner, for example, conditioning, we'll be doing 800s, right? And we'll be doing longer runs to build the stamina. In the transition phase, we're going to be doing 200 sprints. We're going to be 100 sprints. We're going to build up the speed within there. So high intensity, lower duration activity. And when we move into the performance phase, this is when we're sort of peaking at the right time for competition. So it's almost like a bit of a tick over in the performance. We've done all our work up to the condition transition. When we're in performance, then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be peaking at the right time, resting at the right time, right? So intensity and volume, we're having a bit of a balance within there because we don't want to overtrain. That's when injuries happen. And then as we then come off there, we're going to have a recovery. And this is designed to rest our bodies, to rest our minds. So we've learning the lessons, we're having a rest before we go into the next conditioning phase. And you'll find that the conditioning phase then for the next reps are going to be a lot higher, right? So this is what it looks like. So when I've worked with 400-meter runners in the past, we know that there's two specific competition phases. So we've got the competition regionals in May, and then we've got in September, we've got nationals. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be training up for the regionals to get a good time, but we know the times aren't going to be the greatest because we haven't trained for that just yet. We haven't got enough training under our belts. We're going to have a rest and recovery, think about our training methods, and then we're going to go again, right? Very easy in sport, right? But what my passion is, how do we then build this into business? We need to think about, and again, your business is going to look slightly different. Working with business owners, we had to go in quarterly sprints. One of my clients was just absolutely burnt out. He had a construction business and he was on all the time. I said, well, what we need to start doing, we need to start working within quarters. So after every quarter, you need to take a couple of days off, right? And then we recover and then we go again and we recover and then we go again, which is more sustainable than being always on. Other businesses, you could have seasonal variations, right? So you could have like winter, right? I work with an insurance company and their peak time is European summer, right? So if we know that, we can then do some training and conditioning and transitioning and recovery to suit the business, right? Now, what does this then look like for you as a cognitive athlete? In the conditioning phase, what we're looking at is establishing some routines. So routines in the workplace could be, what time you start, what do you do before work? Do you sit down and plan your day? Do you not sit down, plan your day? Are you going to have some structured routines which are predictable, right? So you're going to have your notifications turned off. You're going to be in work at this time. You're going to work from home at this day, right? Have a think about deep work practices, like structure those 90-minute blocks, or you could do Pomodoro technique, which is 25-minute blocks. And then we think around your natural rhythm. So if you're a morning person, you have your high intensity in the morning. If it's in the afternoon, you taper it off a little bit. But again, this is the foundation. So what does it look like in transition? We need to start using prioritization. So 80-20 works pretty well. So what's the 20% of your work that gives you 80% of the results? So we need to start then prioritizing what's the one most important thing that you need to get done today. We need to then streamline these. So can we automate anything? Can we delegate? Can we eliminate any of these non-essential things? And then can we then start priming? So can we use visualization? Can we go outside to get more energy? Can we listen to music for us to then start priming ourselves? And we can also practice too, right? So I've had clients to visualize, like say, difficult conversations, for example. And we'll do that, and then we'll go into the performance phase. We'll deliver it, and then we'll recover. But we're mentally preparing and rehearsing for the performance phase, right? So we need structured focus blocks. So now we know what our priority is. What we need to do is then put that priority in, and then work around that in terms of our days. We need to manage our energy cycles. So we need to put little micro recoveries in as we go through the day. So if you're doing something that is an opposite style, so for me, for example, doing spreadsheets and data analysis, I know it's not a strong point. So what I'll do, I'll put that between 3 and 5, but I'll be sure that I'll prime for it. So I'll get prepared for it, have everything that I need out. I'll go out for a run or a walk, and I'll come back in, I'll focus for 90 minutes. And then after that 90 minutes, then I'll go and regain my energy with a smaller break. And then stay composed under pressure, right? So reframing, thinking about pressure, thinking about what I can do to eliminate some of the mental load as well. And then when we think about recovery, sometimes you need to take a complete reset. You need to step away completely, have a holiday, as an example. We need to do things that give you joy. I don't say that lightly. It's, go out for a walk, take your dog, go to the beach, do something that actually gives you joy to recharge you. And then the final part is then rebuild. So we need to think about lessons learned. So what are we not going to do in the next quarter? What are we not going to do in the next month? For us to then recover, okay? And we can, and this is the one thing that is missing from everyone's calendar, is we don't actually put time in to recover. So if you think about putting it all together, right? So call it the cognitive operating rhythm framework. Is identify your rhythm. Are you an early bird, an owl? Are you someone in somewhere in the middle? Do you know what your priorities are, right? Focus on them and identify them. And then look at your different phases as you go through the week, through the year, in the bigger scale of things. And then we just need to continue refining that through doing that. So whether you're working in a year, quarterly into a year, focusing on the first part of the quarter, or whether it is a bigger cycle that you have, it all depends on how you actually approach it. And being aware of your different cycles, right? So what does this mean for you as a leader, right? Number one, you need to start rethinking leadership. So it's not about always being on or saying, hey, my door is always open. We need to put some sort of boundaries around that one. It requires you to work within your rhythm, not being, and I'd say you need to eliminate that word busy, right? Upgrade your operating system, so align with your natural energy. So we mentioned circadian rhythm, your ultradian rhythm. Use periodization, right, to balance your performance and recovery. Protect your focus, your deep work times. Those are really, really important, right? So take your calendar out and book in the work that you need to do in your calendar, so no one else can book in meetings around that. And encourage other leaders within the business, maybe your team leaders, to do the same. And then the final one is lead with energy and empathy. So prioritize well-being, right? So think about your own long-term health. Model those boundaries, right? So if you say that you're not going to email after 6:30, don't do it. Just put a delayed delivery on. Don't answer the phone. Ask yourself, do I need to attend this meeting at 11 o'clock at night in Europe? If not, can we do this via email? Could we do this some other time? And to shift, because we need to shift from that burnout culture to a rhythm culture. And you think about you as a leader, you're the one that people are looking at all the time. So we need to start role modeling these sort of behaviors. Here you go, final thought. Most successful people aren't the ones who work the longest hours. They're the ones that understand how to work at the right intensity, at the right time, with the right recovery. So here's your challenge, right? Is over the next 30 days, is have a look at where your energy peaks and where it troughs. Look at any energy leaks. Let's build some recovery habits in there, something that sort of works well with you. Plan your rhythm. What does it look like? I skipped over a slide there. Could it look like this, right? In terms of Fridays, you mentioned there, Tony, right? No meeting days, strategic planning, block it in, be intentionally unavailable for you. If you know your customers or you got problem solving, book it into the calendar. I'm not saying that on Fridays you don't do anything, or maybe you do have a meeting, but you're going to get straight back to that strategic focus. So it's around integrating that into your week and identifying what your main priorities are with that one as well. Yeah. If you have any questions, right, or any or you want to get in touch with me, there's my details on there. Like I said, I have got the book coming out. It's available for pre-order. It's going to be out in the shelves in 1st of January this year, and it'll go into a lot more detail with that one there. Like I said, we need to really flip the script on productivity. It's not just being more efficient, it's actually taking care of ourselves so we can use our minds in a way that's going to get us some better results. So thank you. Hopefully I've imparted some little bit of information and knowledge on there for you within 50 minutes, hour of power. Has anyone got like any questions or any insights?
We've had a couple come through, Clint, if you want me to start with them while people are
Yeah,
gathering their thoughts. And,
yeah,
I'm sure there's lots going to come through. But yeah, please, if anyone has any, add them to the chat or the Q&A function just at the bottom of your screen.
yeah.
We've got one here. What tips do you recommend? And I know you've mentioned a couple, but what tips do you recommend for people who struggle to say no? Who
Yeah.
will jump on that call, who will take the meeting?
Yeah, I've got a good I've got oh man, it's on my other slide deck actually. Number one, you need to know what your priorities are, right? So is what that person is asking you a priority, yes or no? If it's not a priority, then you say no. You need to ask your manager, managers need information, right? So if it's your manager asking you, oh, hey, can you just jump on and do 20 copies of this? You need to say, hey, I can do that. However, by me doing this, this is what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be able to get the report to you by 5 p.m. Which one would you like me to do? Oh, so yeah, don't do that. I'll do that. So you need to give, especially managers, you need to give them the information, right? And you need, yeah, so know your priorities, tell them the information, right? And then just stick to your guns. What I would say is, right, it comes to language, yeah. So if you're like, no, I can't do that, people want to work with people that are easy to deal with. So if you can use a positive can-do attitude, say, hey, I'd love to do it. I've got this priority. I've got 3 priorities. I know that's a priority. Which one would you like me to choose? So it's that can-do attitude. Hopefully that's helped.
Perfect. No, thank you. We've had a question here. Any advice on discussing this with a manager who is super focused on being on all the time?
Oh, yeah. Give them a copy of my book. There's loads of research, right? So you'll get a PDF. Would you get they get PDF copy of the slides?
Yes, if you're
Yeah,
happy.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Just show them all the research from Microsoft. Subscribe to my newsletter on LinkedIn. I've got loads of data that isn't, I've got so much information about this. I've been doing this like 20 years. And if they're a data-driven person, this is what we need to start doing. You need to start convincing them with the information, right? And have an open conversation around boundaries. I know, look, it's hard, right? I know it. I know it's hard. I've had this. I've worked like 24/7. It's hard work, but it comes at your long-term health, right? What are your long-term health impacts? And I guarantee you, a lot of executives out there, they're burnt out, right? And they've got chronic diseases, they've got autoimmune diseases and everything. So everyone's struggling. It's because we're not working the way that our bodies are supposed to work. So
Thank you. I've got a couple here.
yeah.
You say you've been doing this for quite a long time, but I guess COVID will have had a big impact, and there's obviously now a whole new group of people in hybrid working. So, do you recommend focusing on certain tasks when potentially working from home, as opposed to certain tasks when working in the office?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, absolutely. People are struggling at the moment, or they've been struggling for the past couple of years, because when they're at home, it depends on your environment. You're a lot more focused. You're able to do deeper work because no one's there walking past your desk or stopping and things like that. So what I would say is give yourself a break. When you're at home, you do your focus deep work. When you're at work in the office, have that for your team meetings, your one-on-one catch-ups, have that for more social stuff, and just go, hey, today I'm not going to get maybe the amount of work I'd usually get in at home, but today is all around being social and talking and having meetings. So I would book all your meetings in the office, and then all of your deep work, you can do that at home. Put your out of office on. You can put that on your Teams chat, so when people message you, they can actually see it, whether or not they heed that or not. They don't, do they? So it's just having the discipline, right? to do that.
Thank you. No, that's perfect. Thank you. We've had one here come through the chat with Athley. How to best suggestions on how to best manage the time difference. So between US and Australia, or Europe and Australia, and follow a good.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, look, so number one, you definitely get your little calendar out with the time zones put on there, so you're able to see all the different time zones. Look, I know I've got an English accent. I'm Australian, right? Australians like to please people because we are the poor neighbor. We're so far away from everybody. We're always on. We always want to be on all the time. So what I would suggest for you is just to stop and go, hey, can we move this? Can we move this meeting to another time? Or maybe we can alternate the time. So I'm sharing the pain, they're sharing the pain, I'm sharing the pain. So it's not just all down on the Australians to go, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll be on at 11 o'clock, 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning. Just ask the question, when they start booking in those meetings. Also, what I would suggest, and this probably goes against the grain of office work, is that take time back. Right? You need to take time back. So if you're on a meeting at 11 o'clock at night, this is all the unsaid, unseen, unpaid work that you do. You take the time back in the morning, right? Or you finish early, or you take a longer lunch break. Because if you were to divide the amount of hours that you work a day by how much you get paid, you're probably going to be on minimum wage, right? Because everyone's working until 11, 12 o'clock at night, right? So it comes back to communication, asking them if they can share some pain now and again, and just taking some time back. I've worked with leaders, they're at 11 o'clock at night, they've been 6 o'clock in the morning, and they have to make decisions with Europe, and they're like, I can't even think straight. So you're not getting the best possible response back. So maybe, can that be recorded and just sent afterwards? But I guarantee you, most of the time when you say, oh, can you change your time? They go, oh yeah, okay, I didn't think. Because everyone's in their own bubble, right? Europe is the most important. America is US is the most important. Everywhere else apart from Australia is the most important. So but you are the most important. So just ask.
Thank you. And I reckon that we've got one last one.
Yeah.
How can we prioritize jobs at the beginning of the day? And then what should we look for when we're giving those priorities out? I imagine.
Yeah. So if you go on my website, there's you can download a template. It's a leadership daily planner, right? So go on there, download it, and it give you a bit of a plan for the day. So you need to think about going back to your KPIs or your strategic plan or your BU plans to go, what's the most important priority that we need to get done this year, this quarter, break it down, this quarter, this month, this week, this day, and then you write it down, right? If you write it down on your planner, you're more likely to actually achieve that. And then at the end of the day, then you reviewed, did I complete what I set out to do? If I didn't, why didn't I do it? Start, stop, and continue. But if you're struggling working out what your priorities are, you need to ask your manager, right? Ask the chairman of the board, right? What's the most important thing I need to do, right? What do you want to get done? And then all focus is on that then. If you don't, some other people are going to fill your time up, right? Meetings. Do I need to go to that meeting? Probably not. Can someone else go? It comes back to just, again, a bit of communication within that. Looking at your strategic plans and download that resource as well. It just gives you a bit of a structure to your day.
Perfect. Well, we are almost at 1. So
cool.
We will take the pressure off you, Clint, and end up there.
What? I'll go for my recovery now. Yeah.
Take a minute.
Go for an ice bath for recovery. Yeah.
A big thank you for being so generous with your time and knowledge this afternoon, Clint. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us today. We really hope you found that session valuable. I know I did, and we'll take a few of those very important pointers back to my role. Before you go, please take a moment to complete the short survey that will appear when you close off the Zoom link today. The feedback that you send us is incredibly important to us, and it will help us shape future sessions just like this one. Finally, before we go, our next Lead the Way webinar will be on Wednesday, the 6th of August, with Senior Organisation Development Consultant Rachel Wilcox. So she will be providing practical, insight-driven session focused on resolving conflict in the workplace. Thanks again, Clint. We really appreciate it. And to you all for joining us today. I hope you all had a fantastic session and have a great rest of your day. And we will see you all at an event soon. Thank you so much. And we'll speak to you later. Thank you.
Thank you.